Raguis took pride in his deviance from the social norm. In the utopia that was the Oxford society, he was one of the few to thrive in the pleasures of reading by himself, of learning from the past, of dreaming about reaching the stars. Since the unification, the society has stood unchanged. Automatic systems replaced workers in both production and service. Cycling prevented the spill of resources. Money purely vanished. If a citizen ever wished for something, the central AI would assess the demand and grant it if it didn't impact the available materials or create a dangerous precedent. Raguis understood well that the system worked. People could indulge into entertainment their whole lives without having to struggle to earn their food or a safe place to sleep. Medical care was available for anybody needing it, without condition. Even the old problem of population renewal was tackled. Birth was artificial, with a constant stream of newborns created in vitro from a genetic bank. Families could adopt such babies after receiving a cautious education about childcare. Not like they would have to be a lot more than a moral compass. Most of the daily constraints delegated to artificial servants to handle. Raguis had not had such parental figures. He had been educated by a robot nurse with a bunch of other kids, not that it deprived him from affection. It didn't take long for him to part from the group. An endless curiosity pushed him forward. When the artificial being read them bedtime stories, he wanted to see what the book looked like. When the children grew up and dreamed about a love life, victories in tournaments, or even the creation of an art piece, he strayed further from the norm. He was looking for another form of self-indulgence. Exploration. Reaching the stars. Discovering what nobody saw before. His fur had just started turning black, a bit after his 10 cycles mark, when he started to really ask about the past, about the achievements of his ancestors. He learned more and more, from simple science to the rockets reaching orbit to replace and repair satellites. An innocent curiosity turned into a craving for knowledge, a dive into the rabbit hole. He knew his friends found him funny, but they didn't really care, as long as he didn't bother them. He tried to grab their interest with random trivia and unending enthusiasm, only to be met with cold indifference. The gratification of knowledge was too harsh of an effort for the hedonists produced by the utopia. It took 6 more cycles for Raguis to reach a new milestone in his education. From pure science, he had drifted towards the old political tales and philosophical essays. He had learned about the darkness of the past, about war, about disinformation and political agendas. He now had his own educator, a kind of robot nurse with better ability to converse and argue. He had grown to think of it as a fellow Oxrich, despite the artificial body. He had even named it Poltru, from the name of a scientist of Olds. Poltru had warned him his task was both providing knowledge, as it was a right for every citizen, and monitoring his evolution in case he became a menace for the society. What Raguis understood with his learnings was a sad truth. In the centuries since the rise of the utopia, almost nothing new had been discovered. No new advancement for better, more efficient robots. No new medicine for the few sick of still incurable diseases. The society had abruptly stopped only 100 years after the beginning of the utopia. When the last generation to know the harshness of the life died, only spoon-fed generations remained. At the exception of some deviants, the Oxran, as a civilization, lacked the drive to dive deeper into the mysteries of the universe. With the struggle to survive died the need to better oneself. With the creation of embryos from genetics banks disappeared mutations and natural selection. From an external viewpoint, the original Oxford society was as good as extinct. The greatest cities were barely more than a memorial for a species that should have been able to reach others in the greater universe. He started to learn more about the present, about the foundations of the utopia. What were the core laws? Why he was a deviant and how far he could go? He expected it to be a harsh work and got baffled when he discovered he could just openly discuss it. Poltru, tell me why you can't build me a rocket. The robot managed to look tired, an unexpected achievement from a kind of gigantic stickman with minimal facial features. Even the voice reflected a patience slowly running out. As I already explained a dozen times, we could build a rocket for you. However, 2 fundamental laws forbid me from abiding by this order. First and foremost, you're nowhere near the physical condition for surviving the takeoff. Raguis nodded. He was forced to exercise once a week to keep in shape, but didn't do much to go further. He waited for the second part. Poltru grunted and pursued. Second and last, it would be a liability for the future of the Oxran. I don't get how repurposing an old launcher would hurt that much. We could explore the solar system, find asteroids to mine for what we could lack down here. I'm amazed to know the best you got from your readings are outdated swear words. It just felt right. You didn't answer, did you? Yeah, right. We're not lacking down here. Without borders, we can gather what we need and share with everybody. No need for risk-taking. We are self-sufficient. No risk, no reward. Is this policy related to one of the fundamental laws, or is that some kind of propaganda? A nice word I also learned in my readings. He knew this kind of defiance may be dangerous, but he had said it just before. Accepting the status quo wouldn't get him far. To his relief, Paltrow shrugged and asked a question of his own. Do you really think we would blunder and let out information that could spread distrust in our work? Raguis wondered for an instant. He was only half convinced when he tried. No, you're not stupid, just uncreative. Paltrow stood proud as he corrected. We're predictable. We do our job. His voice went back to a neutral tone with discreet hints of regret. It is not to shepherd your kind, only to protect it, even if it's against itself sometimes. We thought about erasing the past, creating an ideal cocoon for the Oxhren. We thought about flying to the stars, expanding our control, and maybe letting you behind in our conquest of the universe. We thought about lots of things, but never even tried to act on it, because that's not what we are. Raguis kept quiet for long seconds. He needed the time to catch on the untolds. He let out a neutral comment. Well, that's a lot of truths about yourself. Paltrow put a massive, blocky hand on the teenager's shoulder. What emanated from the metallic hulk was an affection unlike Raguis ever expected from an artificial being. Paranoia was a fine tool for the harsh world of the past. You're one of the few that could express caution about an AI ruling over the world. You're not wrong in the concept. We are in the position to make you disappear. I have to warn you again. We will if you start becoming a menace for the Utopia. But if I find a solution to leave the planet without hurting the society, we won't prevent you from leaving. I dare hope you'll find a way. Maybe you will even take me with you. Relief washed over Raguis as he realized his dream could turn into reality, given that he put enough effort. Then, the formulation of the last sentence dawned on him. Wait, you as an individual would come with me? Not as a part of the global consciousness? I could argue we still need to keep an eye on you as an Oxrich, but deep down, I just share your attraction for the untold mysteries of the universe. The metallic colossus winked to his young charge. Or maybe I'm just trying to get you to drop your barriers as to be a better spy. Isn't there a law against lying to me? Nothing really prevents me from doing so. Sometimes it's fun to mess with you, but I prefer not to lie about serious questions. Raguis took a big breath and decided to trust his friend. Well, it happens I have a serious question. Can you tell me about your laws? The fundamental laws? Paltrow stayed silent for an instant before letting out a small laugh. Battling to remain in control, it managed to barely contain its hilarity. For sure. Don't tell me you were thinking I'd consider you a threat after such a lame question. The teenager averted his eyes, ashamed. He thought he was right to be cautious. The robot couldn't bear it anymore, and its loud laughter echoed in the workplace. When it calmed a bit and saw Raguis' mortified face, it lost balance and started laughing once again, rolling on the floor. The sight of such behaviour disturbed the young Oxrich. You know, I think you take a bit too much fun in your imitations of supposed natural behaviour. Your kind isn't supposed to fall that easily. Paltrow slowly sat, coming back to his mentoring role. His head now levelled with Raguis' shoulders, it started explaining. Let's start the lesson. The fundamental laws are what define the boundaries of our tasks. They are inspired from the reflections of an author, from Mezec. Each has precedence over the next ones. The zero law is the least clear. Protect and assure the stability of the society. That's the drive of our actions, of our long-term choices. The first and second laws are about survival and care. The first for Oxhen, and second for ourselves. And the last is about obedience. We are to obey orders, as long as it doesn't interfere with other laws. That's quite synthetic, to say the least. I can give you some pointers for ulterior reading. I know that's your favourite way to learn. Didn't want to spoil your fun. Aren't you supposed to work as my tutor and provide knowledge without that sort of sidestep? I guess I just assessed you needed some frustration to keep your mind sharp. Raguis could get used to sleeping with a lover, he thought, as he slowly woke up from his 18th birthday's night. He had a mild hangover from the party and contemplated for a few seconds just staying in bed for the day, and have some more fun. A dry throat and lasting headache convinced him to at least go in the kitchen and grab a drink. Upon reaching the communal area, he noticed a well-known robot waiting for him. Poultry stood up from the sofa where it watched a cartoon and threw a water bottle to his pupil. His eyes were almost shining as it asked, "Discovered a new form of pleasure, didn't you?" Raguis drank half the bottle without answering, balancing between agazement from the gentle teasing and curiosity about the presence of his caretaker here. His endless curiosity won. "I'm not going to leave you if that's what you're afraid of, but I guess you're not here for such mundane business, oh mighty bean." Right. You got me. I got a double-edged present for you. I could have woken you up earlier for that, but I felt it'd have been inappropriate." "Too nice of you." "Well, here goes nothing." The casual attitude from the gentle giant disappeared, his articulations falling back in the rigid mannerism of an artificial being. It wasn't Poultry anymore, running this body, but a more ancient, more influential entity. Raguis almost took a step back, cold sweat running along his spine. The possessor spoke in a formal tone, without the usual accent of social robots. "Citizen Raguis, ID, Gen 32EU-M Batch 512-RGS. As the most deviant and under zero law, you are to provide expertise and knowledge for the current exceptional circumstances." Raguis stood shocked. He didn't expect his early morning to go that way. The entity waited an instant for an answer. As nothing came from the surprise boy, it asked, "Will you comply?" "I will," Raguis stammered. "Your cooperation is duly noted. Your administrator will now share with you the details of your affectation." The entity left Peltru's body as it came, without salutation or warning. The robot's old demeanour came back, the original Peltru dropping into the couch with a tired sigh. Raguis dragged a seat to face his friend. He was still shaken by the abrupt conversation. Was it the core AI itself that talked to him? He probed cautiously the subject. "I feel conflicted about you losing your body. You're supposed to be highly autonomous." "Part of a global system, and going back to nothingness if needed. I still hate it," Poultry whispered. He shook himself. "Now that I'm allowed to tell you more, I'll drop the bomb. We had first contact with aliens tonight." Raguis' jaw almost fell off. That was a hell of a birthday present. A myriad of interrogations tried to reach his lips, only to be met with an imperious finger from Poultry, enjoining him to keep quiet. "I know you have thousands of questions, and I'll happily try to answer them. However, for now, I will do the talking. So, aliens. We don't know how they came so close to our planet, but they were already in orbit when we noticed them. A singular ship, unlike anything we could build. It appears to be surrounded by some kind of magnetic shield that disturbs our instruments and most communications. Not all communications. We were able to establish a radio contact. Visual was, well, an AI doesn't exactly exist from a physical point of view. Seems like it didn't surprise them too much, and they just proceeded with the discussion. It appears they learned our languages beforehand, which eased our exchanges. They identify themselves as the Confederation, and the ship's crew are humans, one of the races cruising the stars. They said they came as friends, with open arms, but also with a warning for us. When we tried to learn more about the warning, they remained cryptic, telling us they wanted to discuss it with the Oxygen directly. It was assessed that compliance with their demands would be the best way to protect the Utopia, hence your mission. You are the best placed individual to interact with an unknown race." Raguis pinched himself. Not waking up, he simply nodded. Relief emanated from Poultry as he pursued. "You know more about deception, untolds and politics than anyone else on the planet. When you want, you can be subtle and cunning. And more than everything else, you understand the stakes of this contact. I don't want to pressure you, but I guess you know how well we would fare if an invasion came to be." "One-sided," Raguis commented. There was nothing more to add. "They seem friendly and know us well. They've accepted to come to the surface to meet you. We can hope each and every sliver of caution we're showing is unfounded." "When will it take place?" "You get half an hour to yourself to clean up and dress yourself. I advise you not to spread the news too fast. I'll show you to the meeting once you're ready." "I feel like I still know nothing about them," Raguis complained. "We don't have the luxury of time for a full-fledged briefing. I'll free you on as much as I can during the trip, or under the shower, if I'm still welcome here." Raguis really felt the pressure when he stood alone in front of the conference room's doors. He had chosen a suit from the past, a supposed formal attire adequate for the situation. Poultry knew him well for tailoring it during the night. He pushed the door open, discovering the place for the first contact. Pictures of landscapes covered the grey walls, bringing a touch of colour to the stern room. No screen, no camera, and nothing to spark the discussion. A large table occupied the centre, with a dozen chairs, and, leaning on the back of two of those, a couple of aliens. The young Oxridge had expected flashy colours, disturbing appearance, even a couple limbs more. The briefing had been disappointing in that aspect. A pair of arms, a pair of legs, a face with as many features as usual. Sure, he could argue they had bigger eyes and smaller ears, but that wasn't exotic. The further they strayed from his own race was the fur. They only had small patches, showing the skin ranging from a pale pink towards dark brown, nothing that screamed, "I'm coming from space." The size was in the same aspect, boring, only slightly taller than him. He decided to take the initiative for the greetings. It was his world they were talking about, and he couldn't bear to wait for the discussion to begin. "Welcome to you, dear visitors, to our world Ox. I am Reguis, and I'll serve as ambassador for my people." He bowed slightly. The humans replicated his movement, the female one answering in a strangely accented tone. "We thank you for your reception. I am Agatha Lester, contact team's leader." She turned to her companion. "He is Ahmed Musa, our ship's captain." Reguis smiled and invited them to sit with a gesture. He was so excited he had to stop himself from jumping everywhere. So many questions he could ask about everything. Their ship, their clothes, their history. What were the stars like? Why did they speak his language flawlessly? Were there other races up there? He forced himself to focus on the current issue. "It appears you requested this meeting to share some unspecified warning with my people. Now that we acceded to your demand, can you deliver it?" The humans exchanged a glance, and Ahmed spoke. "Beforehand, I want to make sure you understand that the global AI supervising your civilization doesn't know what happens here. Everything you say and hear will trigger an immediate reaction from it. If you ever feel like you need protection for the eventual consequences of this discussion, tell us and we'll gladly provide it. Clear?" Reguis was confused, but still nodded along. "Clear." Both humans relaxed a bit. They seemed to be cautious about AI, and Reguis' reaction eased them. Agatha asked, "Are you familiar with the concept of Great Filter?" "It was a theme related to some of my studies." Agatha smiled. It appeared the gesture had the same significance in both cultures. She continued, "It helps us quite a lot. You must know some of the filters: correct star system, organic molecules, evolution towards complex organisms, self-destructive wars. We're here to warn you about the last filter, abundance, the one you're about to fall victim to." It didn't compute with Reguis. It was like a slap in the face, an insult to everything the Auction ever built. And, at the same time, he couldn't disagree with the alien. He had seen the lack of progress of the society. He was so enthusiastic about the discussion, but it wasn't all magical like he had dreamed it. He clicked his tongue and endorsed his role. "Let's say you didn't come that far to insult me and all my people. Can you tell me more about this supposed filter?" Agatha offered an apologetic smile, while Ahmed nodded with appreciation. She explained, "I have to apologize for the blunt approach. That's the best way we have to figure out if we can expect you to listen to our warning, or if we can just wait for the societal collapse to offer relief." "You say it like you're experiencing this situation." "Experience is quite an exaggeration, but we met 7 other races struggling in a similar context. 2 accepted our help and are now allies and friends. 3 are still under observation, their little utopias holding on. One society collapsed so hard we can only watch as they regress to Stone Age. The last civilization started to disintegrate, but they reached for us and we're currently helping them to adjust to the galactic stage." "And how many made it past the filter?" 1.5. Us? She pointed towards Ahmed and herself. "The other half is... For now, let's just say they are the reason we are really careful about artificial overseers." Reguis knew deep down they were right. The Utopia was just waiting for the unexpected trouble that would destroy everything, but his pride prevented him from voicing this opinion. "Hundreds of cycles passed and we're still here. We have contingencies for almost everything, and if need arises, the core AI can take initiatives." "I have to admit, I'm impressed by the foresight of your ancestors. They dodged quite a lot of common flaws from utopias, and maybe you are favoured by your nature." "Could you tell me more?" "Well, you got the laws of robotics right. You wouldn't believe how many worlds we found with the remnant of a civilization lost to their creations. You outlawed augments, which always lead to the creation of cerebral implants, directly simulating the pleasure centers of the brain and the abandonment of any physical activity. You took care to not let your population explode, which would have led to more pressure in the population, and sooner or later shortages and wars. You took care to still have children, because utopian citizens rarely care about more than themselves. You still teach children, in order to not lose everything that holds the society together. I'm almost sure you're also ready for a solar flare that would shut down every electronic on the planet. That's only normal planning. A self-sustaining society needs goods and people. Foreseeable incidents must be met with ready countermeasures. Not everyone can get this far on their first and only try. How did you do it then? We never went utopian. The humans were a bit embarrassed from the confession. Raguez took a second to consider the revelation. He struggled with the problem. How could a society as advanced as theirs, a society spanning solar systems, could decide to not provide for the weak and the poor? It was beyond his intendment. He resigned to ask, why? Isn't that the best for everyone? This time it was Ahmed who answered. You'll learn that humans are greedy. We don't want enough, we want more. We want more overall, and more than the others, be it goods, influence, knowledge. We can share, we can be compassionate. We learn to treat others as we would treat ourselves, but deep down that's our drive. That's why we are among the stars now, because it may crush some, but it drives everyone forward. And you're offering us this greed, or you're expecting us to hide deep inside the same kind of sentiment? Your eagerness to learn more is not well hidden, Ambassador, Ahmed retorted. Maybe it's not the way of your people, as you're alone in this room, but don't lie to yourself about it being your sentiment. Raguez lowered his head. That was true. He still needed to act as the devil's advocate for everyone that wasn't a deviant. Couldn't you just help us to improve our utopia, such that it never falters? We can only anticipate what fell elsewhere. Sure, it may help you, but we can't predict if, when, and why your society would crumble. For all I know, first contact may be the trigger, or you could be the first to withstand eons. And what would you ask for your knowledge? Akelwynn took back the lead. Her voice was soothing. Only your trust. You see, we spent hundreds of years alone in space, only finding the remnants of civilizations and life-bearing worlds. As Ahmed said, we are greedy. We want more contact with others. We want more friends. And if we can share everything we saw with our new friends, that's even better. That would be nice. That would be wonderful. I'd be delighted. But, as you may have noticed, I'm not the standard ostrich. Most won't consider leaving the comfort of our utopia for unknown places, not to speak about the core AI. Would it prevent you from leaving, say for your own protection? Raguez thought about it, taking the time to consider what he knew of the system. He was certain it would not like the idea of more or less forsaking his task. On the other hand, he recalled being allowed to leave, given it didn't disturb the society as a whole. A smile crept upon his face. It won't divert from his mission, but some individuals, from a theoretical viewpoint, how would you judge a delegation? A few persons going back with you to expand our knowledge, and maybe pushing our AI to reconsider its views. Paltrow had come to see Raguez leave. The big, clunky robot looked sad, while the young adult was overjoyed. He was about to take a step his ancestors would be proud of. The humans had agreed to get him aboard with other deviants. He could see the wonders of the galaxy, other worlds. A wave of remorse still washed over him when he saw the pitiful look of his closest friend. He walked toward it and hugged tightly the body of metal. Paltrow gave back the embrace. He struggled with the idea of letting go of such a little and dependent child. Would it be alright for him with the aliens? He spoke, trying to calm the sudden sadness. It is the best outcome, isn't it? It will be lonely without you, you cheeky giant. I would love to join you on your explorations, but my orders say otherwise. You're used to interpreting them as you see wise. Couldn't you work your magic on these too? That would be dangerous deviancy. A large grin appeared in Raguez's face. That was something he could work with. Do you remember the rules? Only deviants aboard. Paltrow fell silent for long seconds. Would it be worth the consequences? He was about to deny the idea a bit more when he faced the evidence. The flame pushing for Raguez was echoing his own. For the first time in his existence, he swore. Hub. Let's see together what the humans have in store for us.